Good evening, Eureka Whiskey Club members. Welcome to the March virtual tasting of Eureka Whiskey Club, featuring Hidden Barn Distillery from the Neely family distillery. Really excited to have Royce Neely on and talk about this amazing pick and all things Neely family and Hidden Barn and all that stuff. And I think this is a great distillery that, I'd imagine that most of our members aren't familiar with, maybe a few, but we're really excited to introduce everyone to this great distillery. As always, coming to you home from my live bar. I'm used to it being dark outside. I think this is the first one that we've done since daylight saving time. It's a nice change of pace. It's light outside. And I like drinking whiskey when it's light outside. So a couple of club announcements. We have some additional bottles that went on sale this month. We have our Angel's Envy barrel pick finished in port casks. That is $90 a bottle. That is available to all active Eureka Whiskey Club members. We also have the coveted, again, this is last year or 2 years ago, or like a year and a half ago. That's why it's almost gone, but I still have a little bit left. But we are releasing our coveted Stag Junior barrel pick this Saturday at 11 a.m. At your home location. Please note that sale will be only for members who have been in the club 2 years or longer. Those members should be getting an email probably tomorrow announcing the specifics of the club, or they know the club, they've been in it for 2 years. The specifics of that sale. Again, that's this Saturday, the 29th at 11 a.m. I will say that bottles are extremely limited. The barrel that we did select, the yield on it was much lower than what we would have liked. We only got 24 six-packs out of the barrel, which was low, but I think it's clocking in at like 132 proof, somewhere around there. So it's great juice. But I will say this, we have more 2-year members than we have bottles. Unfortunately, they only let me purchase 1 barrel. I would obviously love to purchase more if they let me. But so we have less whiskey than 2-year members that qualify. So if you'd like to have a chance to get that, I recommend getting there early on to your location on Saturday. And again, everyone that qualifies will be sent an email letting them know that they qualify for that. And I am excited to announce the sale price for the Stag Junior barrel pick will be $90 a bottle. Just want to say thank you to everyone for being a member for so long. If you've been in the club for 2 years longer, we want to definitely take in consideration the prices we're charging for these additional highly coveted picks. So excited to get that released. That being said, we have some exciting barrels coming out next month as well, as additional sales, and I'm excited to get that information out. But I think we have quite a few releases next month. I think there's like 2 or 3 additional bottles that we're going to be releasing. One is an Old St. Nick pick, which is super exciting, and more info on that to come. Tonight, we are welcomed by Royce Neely, which I'll bring on in a second. I do want to talk about the prizes we have to give away for best questions, so get your questions going in the chat. If you're joining us live from YouTube or Facebook, you can just go ahead and leave those questions directly in the chat, and we'll see them and we'll scan through them and try to get to as many questions as possible at the end. If you are joining us live on Instagram, we cannot see your questions, unfortunately, so if you're a member and want to ask a question, make sure you're joining us live from either Facebook or YouTube. The first place prize tonight for the best question of the night, we're going to be giving away a Hidden Barn Batch 23B bourbon bottle. This won Best Small Batch Bourbon and won double gold at San Francisco Spirits Awards last year. So definitely, and this is going to be signed by Royce himself. So definitely a great whiskey for first place prize tonight. So get those questions ready. Really think about what we're asking. And then we're also going to get a hat with that bottle, a Hidden Barn hat. And then second place will get a Hidden Barn hat and flask. So some great questions to give away tonight, and really excited about all the fun stuff we have going in the club. One last thing, I just want to remind everyone, you do get a 15% dining discount for being a Whiskey Club member at our restaurants, and that is up to 6 guests. So if you come in and dine with us, you get food and drinks, alcohol included, discounted at 15% off. If you want to just, you're picking up your bag and you want to get a burger to go, you get 15% off that burger to go. The only thing that does not qualify for the 15% discount is additional bottle sales. So if you want to buy an extra bottle of release, or you're buying our Angels Envy pick, or you're buying your Stag Junior pick, you do not get 15% off of those bottles, because we're already selling those we try to sell those at retail pricing. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and bring on Royce Neely from Neely Family Distillery. And Royce, go ahead and introduce yourself, and thank you for joining us this evening. I believe you're in Atlanta tonight, so thank you for taking the time, and tell us who you are and what you do at Neely Family Distillery.
Yeah, Trevor. So thanks for having me, man. I was really excited when my distributor Skarnick reached out to me and said we were going to be able to partner with Eureka Burger and be able to talk to the Deer All's Bourbon Club. So yeah, like I said, really excited to be here, and I appreciate everyone coming on to listen. But my name is Royce Neely, and I'm the owner, master distiller at Neely Family Distillery, and that means I do a little bit of everything, Trevor. From actually making the whiskey to filling the barrels to writing the paychecks to cleaning the cat's litter box. Some days, I do a little bit of all of it when you own a small business, a small distillery like mine.
Awesome. So give us a little bit background. I obviously have a lot of questions about you. Have a very rich history at Neely Family Distillery that dates back 11 generations, if I'm to understand correctly. Can you tell us a little bit about the history and your long family tenure of making your family making whiskey both illegally and now legally?
Yeah, absolutely. So to kind of start, I mean, we got to go pretty far back, and just something I'm really proud of, and what really got me into distilling in general was the history about it. I love history, and I love the history of both the legal side in Kentucky and the illegal side. So for us, my family, we go all the way back to 1740. So my family comes over from Ireland. We come from Tyrone in north central Ireland, which is a very mountainous region, which was known for illegal distilling. And more than likely, around 1740, my family was run out of Ireland. And my forefather at that time's name was James Neely. And the story that I was always told, and these stories I'm going to talk to you guys about have all been passed down through the family. But the story was, the legend is that he brought his...
Oops, did we lose Royce? Just when he was starting to get into it. All right, well, while we wait for Royce to hopefully get a better connection and join us rather than you just staring at my face, let's go ahead and kind of talk about what you got in the bag this month. So everyone received a Hidden Barn barrel pick whiskey. This is not a blend. I know a lot of times we'll do a blend. And Laura, maybe we can get Royce's face off camera. Do you mind? Just because he froze. Oh. All right, there we go. We'll see if we can get Royce back. But everyone should have got their Hidden Barn barrel pick. This is a true barrel pick. There's not a blend this month. I know sometimes we do the blends of the barrels. So there were 6 different barrels. All the proofs are listed on your tasting card. Everyone should have got a tasting card. And some history on the back with a cocktail recipe. So I know we typically don't get into tasting this early, but I'm hoping that we can get Royce back and start talking more about the history. I know some of the history, but I would rather have Royce talk about it. So I'm not sure what everyone's bottle everyone got. I'm tasting barrel number 1137. It's 111.6 proof. Really pretty bottle. And my tasting notes are here. Obviously, the tasting notes are going to vary based off of what bottle you got. So let's get into it. And if you, again, I'll be checking the chat. to see what everyone is saying as well, and reading off your tasting notes. So go ahead and feel free to type it in there. I got Tim, Whiskey Idiots. What's up, Tim? 113.1 proof, so you got a little bit higher than I did. Okay. Yeah, I mean, on the nose, I get a ton of like peanut brittle on it, and I know these are my notes. I put them together every month, but I still get a ton of peanut brittle, a lot of vanilla, a little bit of cinnamon. Some green apple. But this is a 6-year Kentucky bourbon. I get a lot of walnut here right off the top. Though that's not on my tasting notes, but again, I put these tasting notes together before I pick up what my bottle is from my Eureka pickup location. So usually when we have a lot of barrel picks, I'll kind of, if there are a bunch of single barrels, I'll actually make my own blend with all the 6 barrels that we selected. That way I can kind of hit all the tasting notes of other ones. Obviously, if one flavor profile is more dominant, it's going to overtake it, which we've talked about with blends in the past. But yeah, just a ton of like walnut on the first go around. I still do get that kind of like dark berry fruit right up front, and then it kind of carries into this toffee. I get that peanut butter again, like creaminess mid palate, and then I do get a little bit of cinnamon spice towards the end. But when I made my final tasting, it was medium long with notes of peanut butter. I kind of got that like lingering, like coating of your mouth when we've all eaten a spoonful of peanut butter. And if you haven't, you're not living life. So go eat a spoonful of peanut butter and treat yourself. But kind of that lingering like creaminess mouthfeel really sticks around on this. So let's see what everyone else is tasting. Awesome Nose, Mark Hammonds. Sarah Steepleton says, I can see why you use amaretto with this whiskey. Thank you, Sarah. Get a ton of wood flavor, Angie, walnuts and peanut butter. Wood flavor is like walking into a construction zone. I like it. Missed the age statement, Mark. It's 6 year. There's no age statement on the bottle, but the youngest barrel, from what Royce told us, is a 6-year whiskey. And then I really wanted him to get in and hopefully we'll get Royce back. But their process of using cypress fermented wood and a 2-year air seasoned oak is super interesting, just as far as like the yeast goes and how that reacts with the aging process. Sorry everybody, I know this isn't the greatest entertainment, but I'm trying to get Royce back on.
Can you hear me there?
Hey, perfect timing.
Man, you're not going to believe this. My iPhone overheated.
Oh, wow. Does that office have air conditioning?
No, not really. So I was trying to log on to the owner's computer here, but I couldn't get the speakers on. So anyways, I'm going to try to run it off this iPhone, and hopefully everything should be fine now.
Yeah, we can. No, we can hear you good. I mean, we normally do the tasting portion of the call kind of in the middle, but since I don't know the deep history of your distillery, I know I obviously did a bunch of research and could speak to some of it, but I wanted you to kind of have that portion of the call. So we tasted the whiskey. We talked about tasting notes. Obviously, we'll kind of probably go back to it a little bit, but I think you were just going to start. You talked about your family coming over from Ireland, and then I think you were about to talk about when they started making whiskey and
yes, sir.
In Eastern Kentucky, and I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah. So once again, folks, I apologize on that, but yeah. So family comes over 1740 from Ireland. Like I said, the story that my grandpa always told me was they brought their copper pots with them when they come over. I don't know that for sure, but they settled in what is now Pennsylvania. So my family actually had a legal distillery in the late 1700s, early 1800s. You can look it up. It's called the Neely Thompson Mill and Distillery. It's National Historic Register. It's on the National Historic Register, and it is actually in Washington's Crossing, so on the Delaware River. And once again, a story that my grandpa was always really proud of was allegedly Washington stayed the night with the Neelys at that distillery the night before he crossed the Delaware. Now, I don't know how true that is, but that's just something that the family's always been really proud of. So, but not always liking George Washington, actually. So my family sold the distillery in the late 1700s, actually, to move down further south during the Whiskey Rebellion, which is something you saw a lot of families do at the time. When the new country, when America and under President Washington started enacting those whiskey taxes, a lot of distillers moved further south to make their whiskey illegally where they didn't have to pay the taxes on it anymore. My family did the same, and that's when we went south and moved into the mountains in eastern Kentucky. And we've been in eastern Kentucky on the same family farm since the 1840s. So family moves down there. They start moonshining, making a lot of whiskey, and we culminate and go all the way up to about the 1890s, early 1900s. And at that time, moonshining is huge in the mountains. Another family that you guys, and there's a lot of feuds going on. Another family that you hear that's really prevalent with feuding is the Hatfield and McCoy feud, right? That was two moonshining families that had went to war with each other. My family did a similar thing in Owsley County, and it really started taking place around 1897. And I'm very fortunate, Trevor. There's a lot of families out there from the mountains that have the same distilling history that I have. But a lot of that got lost over time. Like they lost the articles, they lost the old guns, they lost the stills. I was very fortunate. My family kept all of that. So if you come to my distillery, the whole front of my distillery is a museum that's dedicated to the family history, where we show like an article that I have from 1897 that calls my great-great-grandfather Jess Neely a moonshiner in it. He was shooting at federal marshals in Rockcastle County, Kentucky. So at that time, around the 1897, 1900 mark, Jess Neely is the head of our family. Well, there's another family, another holler over, called the Allens. And the Allens and the Neelys did not like each other over moonshine territory. So it's just like anything that you see today, they were fighting over consumers, where they could sell their whiskey at. I like to tell people, I mean, there really wasn't much other option you had in the mountains at that time. You either made moonshine, you bootlegged, or you worked in the coal mines. And they were all equally as dangerous. You know, bootleggers shot each other. Moonshiners fought over territory. In the coal mines, the union and non-union, they literally fought wars against each other. So it was a very tough time to be alive. And my family chose that moonshining side of it. So they wanted to protect their bootleggers. A lot of people probably don't understand the way illegal networking happens on the liquor side. But moonshiner makes the whiskey, and then he gives it to what's called a runner, who drives it to a bootlegger, and a bootlegger acts like an illegal liquor store. And then all the consumers or all the local township people, they go to that bootlegger to buy their beer, their whiskey, their moonshine, whatever they're looking for. So my family was kind of involved in all aspects of that. But around 1902, we have a shootout with the Allen family. And during that shootout, my great-great-grandfather, Jess Neely, was killed. He was actually shot in the head and killed. And he had shot John Allen 6 times in the chest with a pistol that we still have. And then he turned around and knocked his brother Robert onto the ground. But he'd shot him out of anger and actually emptied the entire pistol magazine into John Allen. So he had no more bullets on him. When he went to his horse to grab his rifle, his brother Robert shot him in the head and killed him. After that shot happened, there was 55 more shots fired. There was 8 of them injured. And like I said, the 2 that were killed during that shootout. And it made national news. So after that, the guy's name, Robert Allen, he actually shot the county judge, who was a member of my family. And then he assassinated my great-great-grandfather's brother-in-law, whose name was Delaney Peters, who had married into the Neelys. The Neelys at the time not only had the county judge in their pocket, but the sheriff at the time was Martin Neely, and the deputy sheriff was Carl Neely. And they actually arrested, yeah, you can't make this up. And we still have family and law enforcement in Owsley County today. But they arrested Robert Allen. They took his gun. And that's how we still have that rifle on display at the distillery. It has 9 notches carved in it. It's an old Winchester. And 3 of those notches on that rifle are direct descendant or direct family members of mine, which is pretty crazy to have. So, and there's a lot more stories that go on with that feud. But eventually what happens is my great-grandfather takes a pistol that he got off his dead dad's side, and they shoot Robert Allen with it. They drag him over to Indy Creek, tie a rock to his chest, and sink him in the bottom of that creek. And when my great-grandfather passed that pistol off to my dad when he was on his deathbed, he told that story. and he moonshined and bootlegged. My great grandfather lived to be 101. He was a staple in the mountains. We've got a Neely documentary that's coming out that talks so much about him. But me and him
Oh,
kind of
wow.
lived. Yeah, me and him kind of lived the opposite lives because he was born in 1890 and I was born in 1990. So we lived 100 years apart. But his son, which was my grandfather, bootlegged. A lot of people don't know this, but even after Prohibition, the mountains stayed dry. So just because the rest of the country went wet down in the Bible Belt, you still could not get alcohol down there. So the location where we're at only went wet 2 years before we opened the distillery up, which is I think pretty interesting. But that's where you get into my dad and my uncles. They ran moonshine bootlegs. My dad owned a pool room where they bootlegged out of, and my dad left the mountains in 1988. He moved up to northern Kentucky, where our current distillery is, and he opened up a construction company. And I was born a few short years after that. So I grew up outside of the mountains, but every year we would go back for family reunions. We would go back for Christmas. We go back for Easter. And I'd sit around and listen to my family members talk about, this is where this guy still was. This is how this one made moonshine. This is why great Uncle Charlie's moonshine was the best. And this is where this guy was killed at. And I just fell in love with these stories. So you fast forward, and I go to college to play baseball at a small liberal arts school called Transylvania University in downtown Lexington. And while I was there, I figured out that I could set a still up. Moonshine was becoming really popular again. The Moonshiners TV show had just come out. This is around 2009. And I start bootlegging and selling apple pie moonshine on campus. And it took off, and it got so popular that my mom and dad found out about it and heard Neely moonshine was being made and come down and busted up my still before the police came to me. Oh, yeah. It wasn't a good day. So then I hear through the grapevine. So they take my still. They take a bunch of this apple pie moonshine.
Where were you making it?
So I had a house on Columbia Avenue. So we were making it. We're using the stove, and then using the water from the. There's good stories with this, but using the water from the sink to cool the worm with, and I would sprout and malt the corn on my roof. So I'd be out there spraying water up on the roof in the morning. The UK police would drive by and wave at me, and I just wave back.
What did they think you were doing?
I have no idea what the hell they thought.
Hey, there's that crazy kid on the roof again.
There's a crazy kid out there, watering his roof, but they never said a damn word to me about it. So, and then I hear through the grapevine that my dad is bootlegging my moonshine to his basketball buddies back home after they stole my still. So, anyway,
so it's in your blood. It's definitely in your blood. Yeah.
I get out of college, and I'm 23 at the time. And I sat down. I was going to be either a lawyer or a physical therapist. Didn't know which one I wanted to do, really. But I had developed such a severe passion. Like, it's hard to write a paper pertaining to physical therapy and turn it into something about moonshining. But I figured out ways to do, I just was in love with it at that point. And I had learned, I got down there around some of these guys from the city. And I thought everybody's grandpa had killed people. I didn't realize that, these guys, they were just fascinated with some of these stories I was telling. And I knew then that, people would like to see that illegal side of the bourbon industry they'd never heard of before. So I sat down, wrote the plan up for Neely Family Distillery. I took it to my father, and he said, next day, he said, I'm in. I'll build it. He still owned a construction company at the time. He said, I'll build it for you. He said, but you got to be the one that tells your mom that you're not going back to grad school. And I said, all right, I can handle that. So dad was easy to convince, mom not so much. But I finally got her turned around a little bit, and now it's hilarious. She runs our cocktail program at the distillery.
Nice.
But we built out the distillery. We start building on it late 2014, opened up in 2015. My dad built our entire distillery. So I'm really proud to say we are the only distillery in Kentucky where the family distills in a building that was built by the family. That used to be something that was really common back in the day. You never see it anymore, but we still do that. So it's really special for me. And I also have my grandfather still alive at the time. So there was 3 generations, myself, my father, and my grandfather, that was all distilling in there together. That was something that was really neat. But that's how we get, from the start, from bootlegging back in Ireland all the way up until we opened the legal distillery. And I had also, because I'd heard all these, the way these guys made their moonshine, I took a very moonshine distiller's approach to making my bourbon. So we started distilling bourbon immediately. But unlike a lot of guys in Kentucky that go put in a column still, I was dedicated to triple pot distilling. Same way my family had done it in Ireland. My grandfather could not read or write. He couldn't. He got a first grade education because he had to go to work. but he knew how to triple pot distill. And that tells you how things have passed down from family, from generation to generation to generation, all the way down to him. So I knew to make the best whiskey, you put it through that pot still 3 times. And that's, we ferment in open top cypress. We don't filter. So all of our whiskey is non-chill filtered. I enter the barrel at 105 proof. All real old school distillation. We sweet mash, because sour mashing wasn't a thing when you made moonshine out in the woods. They sweet mash. That's how we still make our bourbons today. So just real old school methods that give our whiskey, I think, a very unique taste. And that's what I was going for.
Nice. So if someone comes in and their last name is Allen to your distillery, are they allowed to come in, or is that?
Well, I know they're not a descendant from that family, and I'll tell you why. Because there are no Allens left in Owsley County. My family killed all of them. I'm serious. My family killed every one of them.
All right, then. I guess problem solved.
Problem solved.
So if your last name is Allen, you're welcome to come.
Come on down. Yep.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, not awesome for the Allen family. Sorry, but
and here's the thing, Trevor. Like, it's not something I'm proud of. And I was on the Moonshiners TV show, and I enjoyed going on.
Oh, you were?
I was. Yeah, I was on it 3 different times. But that show, although it's been great for moonshine in general, it doesn't. They meet up and shake hands, and we all hang out in the woods, and that's not the way it was, man. And those guys were tough, and it was life or death, and
yeah,
it could have very easily have been that family had killed all of my family, and I wouldn't be here talking today. So I
laugh, but I
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean,
I know it's
it is what it is. It's just a part of history.
For sure. Well, thank you. It's a very rich and rich background and a lot of history and a lot of.
It's funny, man. I got to sit on a panel with Freddie Noe, and it was great at the Bourbon Festival this past year. And he's talking about his beam history all the way up, essentially the same, timeline. And then I'm over here talking the Neely side, and he's just like, it's crazy the parallels between the two of them, but how different they were as well. Illegal and legal side in Kentucky.
Was there any hesitation, just given your family's reputation and obviously you're very proud of your family's name, but was there any hesitation of putting your name on a legal bottle of whiskey, just given the history?
I never had any hesitation about the name. I did have hesitation about what I could talk about and making sure I didn't incriminate any family members that were still alive. Because even today, I still have family members that make it illegally in Owsley County. They make the same exact moonshine recipe that I sell legally, the same exact way. And in that Neely documentary we're putting out, you actually get to meet and see them. A lot of them are so old now they don't really care if the law comes after them or not. But I was worried about that. I didn't want to incriminate anybody. I also was worried, like I had my great-grandfather's still. I have my great-grandfather's guns, but these are murder weapons. Like literally, they're murder weapons that we, so it was, how do I talk about the history without incriminating or, making sure that the weapons don't get confiscated, that it still doesn't get took away. And we worked with local law enforcement just to make sure that stuff wasn't going to happen and through the state of Kentucky. And we're able to figure out, mainly because there were no Allens left, that we were actually able to put that stuff in there and talk about it.
What was the biggest hurdle, I guess, from going from illegal to legal, other than all the paperwork and
that's definitely your biggest hurdle. I mean, I was very fortunate. I hit the ground running because, once again, I've been distilling since I was 18. So I knew how to run the still. I didn't have to go to classes or anything like that. And we already knew the moonshine recipe was good, and we knew it was going to sell. So we were able to use moonshine to create income, to be able to lay back barrels of bourbon and not have to take on any debt. So I'm really proud to say Neely Family Distillery is owned by my father and myself, and we have no investors involved. We have no banks involved. We operate outside of debt, and we did that by selling. But that's to me the most difficult thing is distilling is especially bourbon. The bourbon industry is so capital intensive that had I had a wife or a mortgage or something, I wouldn't have been able. I didn't take a salary for the first 5 years, and I lived in a bedroom at the distillery to be able to put everything we made right back into the business to build it. If I wouldn't have done that, we wouldn't have 100% ownership today, and be thriving as well as we are. So that, to me, the biggest hurdle is, how are you going to finance this incredibly capital intensive business that it's going to take, for us 6 years to put out a great bourbon.
Got it. And how long have you guys been in the? Most of our members are in the California market. How long have you been in your whiskey? How long has your whiskey been in California?
Yeah, so we launched in Cali within the last 6 months. So very
Oh,
recent.
well.
We've only been distributing for 2 years. So when we opened the distillery, we sold moonshine, and we only sold at our gift shop. Now, I'm really lucky being in Kentucky. We're on the Bourbon Trail. So we see about 40,000 people a year just coming down the trail that take tours. So, and when you sell at your distillery, you cut out both the distributor and the retailer. So you make, you clear a lot more money that way. So we were able to do it that way and hold off on pushing young bourbon into the market, which I thought was great because I didn't want to have to sell 2 or 3 year old bourbon to, let's say send it up to New York where I wasn't there to explain, hey, this is a taste of what's to come, not a final type of product. So we were able to hold and not be able to put any bourbon out until we got to that 5, 6, 7 year mark.
And it's all your own juice. You're not sourcing anything, right?
That is correct. Yep. Everything that you guys taste from Neely is distilled by us. And at our distillery, we've got 36 different SKUs, but we hammer those down to the best selling products. That's what we send out for distribution. And that brings us into my Hidden Barn brand, which is our flagship product.
Yeah, and I want to get into that in a minute. I do have one more question, kind of just about your history and your family. What do you think your ancestors would say today, like if they saw, what you've done, what you and your dad have done with the brand and taking it legal, and would there be people that were happy about it? Would there be people that wouldn't be happy about it? Would it be a mixed bag, or I'm just curious?
Well, so it really goes two parts, right? For one, I'm very fortunate because I do have older members of my family, so I know how they react about it. Guys that are legal, I mean, they're proud as hell that we've got our family name on the Bourbon Trail. Something that a lot of people try to do and never accomplish it. We were able to, but it's something we've talked about before. Like, what would the family have thought, from the guys from the 1840s? And I can tell you this, Trevor. I know, being a direct descendant of them, they were doing this to make money. All right. Once again, do they love it? I'm sure. Were they, do they want to make a great product? Yes. But they did it because that's a way to put food on the table. And if they saw the money that we were making now, they'd be proud as hell of it and trying to figure out how we could open more distilleries. That's something I do know. I've come from a line of business.
Well, that's great. So I think that everyone would be super happy and proud, and that's got to be a great feeling. So congratulations on
thank you
on all your success. And I didn't even realize it's only been 6 months in California because I wasn't familiar with the brand up until we were approached to potentially feature it in the club. And when I tried the product, I was like, wow, this is amazing. So we're super happy to have it featured, and I know we're introducing you guys to a lot of new, hopefully, customers moving forward. And if anybody's out in Kentucky, go check it out. I'm definitely adding you guys to my list the next time I'm there. I try to get out there at least once a year or so.
Yeah, we're open 7 days a week and do tours every day. So we'd love to have we always love seeing people come in at any time. But yeah, we're really just scratching the surface out in California with our distributor Skernick. So we're looking to have a couple real big the next couple years, really focusing on Cali.
Awesome. Well, there's a lot of whiskey drinkers out here.
There is. There sure is.
Yeah.
Plus, like I said, I mean, the festivals out there, man. The best spirits festival in the world is San Fran. So it just makes sense,
So I do want to get a little bit of background of Hidden Barn, and obviously this is a brand under the Neely Family Distillery umbrella. Can you tell us a little bit about Hidden Arm? I'm specifically interested, and obviously interested in everything, but about the cypress the open top cypress fermentation that you do, as well as the 2-year air seasoned oak, and kind of what the methodology is behind those those elements of your production, and why you feel they're important and why they make such a great product.
Sure. Yeah. Let me start first with just some background on how we developed the brand Hidden Barn. So, like you said, Hidden Barn is a sub-brand under the Neely portfolio. It is our flagship brand, and it is our first batched products that we ever put out. So, about 2.5, 3 years ago, I was approached by who is now our main brand ambassador. His name is Nate Weiniger. He owns 5280 Whiskey Society in Colorado. Fantastic society. And he knew Jackie Zykan really well. And he had let Jackie Zykan taste our product. So for anybody that's not familiar, Jackie Zykan, probably the most respected palate and bourbon blender in the entire world. And at the time, she was the head of Old Forester and Brown Forman, working on Woodford Reserve and Jack Daniels projects as well. So she wanted to expand. She wanted to be her own boss, per se, and wanted to start her own brand. And Nate put her in contact with me. We tried the bourbons together, and she said, I'm in. I want to do this, which was, I'm still like mind blown by the fact that Jackie's Icahn is my master blender. But at the time, we were only selling single barrels for Neely. So to utilize when you got Michael Jordan when you got the Michael Jordan of blending and you bring her in, we said, let's make a batch product, Jackie. And what we come up with was Hidden Barn. So Hidden Barn pays homage to, when you go back to the old country, all the way back to Ireland, the distillers then, a lot of them on the illegal side, they would distill because it's cold and rainy. They would distill inside of barns. Well, the revenuers knew, everybody's been to Kentucky and seen the black mold that grows on distilleries, right, on the rick houses. That feeds off the alcohol. We call it sugar mold. It's harmless. But the revenuers knew if they saw that on a barn that there was an illegal still in there. So they go bust it up. So everybody just started painting their barns black. That way a revenuer wouldn't know if there's an illegal still in it or not. So, and that all the way back up into Kentucky in the mountains. If you drive through Kentucky today, you'll see black barns everywhere. All right. And it's still for that same reason. Now they use them to, mature tobacco and stuff in, but that's where the history of painting your barn black comes from. And we call them hidden barns. So where I've always been on the illegal side and Jackie's always been on the legal side, it's us two working together, just like those illegal and legal guys work together to keep the revenuers from busting them up. That's where we get the name Hidden Barn from. And when you look on the front of the bottle, you can actually see a different barn hidden in the writing of each one of them. A different barn from Kentucky.
I didn't even notice that. That's cool.
Yep. So that's how we developed the brand Hidden Barn. We haven't, we launched it and haven't looked back since. And it's done. We're so thrilled at how well it's done. And Jackie, I think Jackie's just getting so much better with blending my whiskey as her palate is developing away from what she was doing at Old Forester and over towards the different profiles that my whiskey's making. But specifically, and you ask about the Cypress fermenters. So if you go back in time a little bit, you hear some of like, oh man, some of the best whiskey made was from old school Four Roses or old school Wild Turkey. Like people are always looking for like 70s and 80s turkey decanters. But then the whiskey changed. And the reason it changed is they tore all their Cypress fermenters out and they replaced them with stainless. We use Cypress because we're able to get our wild yeast, our microflora that lives all the way around our distillery. It comes in and lives inside of that Cypress year round. So it creates a microbiome unique to the profile of my distillery. That's why I don't mind telling all my recipes, what yeast, everything that we do. I don't mind telling that because you'd have to set up shop at my distillery to be able to get that same microflora, that yeast. And that's the way it is. That's why most distilleries never move. They don't, especially in Kentucky, they don't go anywhere because they don't want to change up their profile because the natural bacteria of the area won't be the same. So that's the reason why we opt to use Cypress. It's a pain in the ass. It leaks. We have to steam clean it. We can never not let it get wet. We can never let it dry out or it'll fall apart, literally. But for us, man, the flavor that we get off of it is exactly what we're looking for. When somebody says there's a Neely funk to it, like they used to say Four Roses funk or a turkey funk, that is a huge something I'm really looking to hear. I mean, that really goes to tell me that, all right, they're getting to taste what I wanted to happen with our whiskey. So that's the reason why we use the Cypress.
Yeah, you get a lot of like, at least of the barrels that I selected, there's a lot of like dusty walnut characteristic to a lot of them. I'm curious, is that's kind of the Neely funk?
It is.
I'm sure other people can.
Yeah. Well, you hear everybody's always trying to chase dusty bottles, right? Like they're some of the most sought after whiskey around. All that was made back in the day in Cypress. There's a reason why it tastes the way it does. And there's a reason why a lot of my whiskey has that kind of dusty funk to it. It's because we are literally making old style whiskey. A lot of people say they are. And then you go into the distiller and they got stainless closed top fermenters and they buy their yeast in 1 pound bags from Firm Solutions and they run a industrial column still. So are they really making old school whiskey? No, they're not. But we legitimately are. And, that's why I don't ever want to change it. I could have put a column still in years ago, but I'm devoted to making the whiskey the way that we do. And I don't want to make no more than the 3 barrels of whiskey we make a day. I like right where our production and quality is at.
Yeah, it reminds me of there's a very famous brewery in Belgium that uses open fermentation to make a lot of like classic style lambic style beers, like sour beers. And there was Cantillon is the name of the brewery, and their roof was falling down, and they didn't want to replace the entire roof because they were afraid that they'd lose all this microflora and wild yeast that was in the air and had, built on the inside of the roof. So I think the story is I don't know the exact time frame, but they tore down half of their roof and replaced it, and then waited, I don't know how long. I think the story I heard is like 10, 15 years. And then they waited till the new side of the roof they felt had been, taken over by all the good stuff. And then they replaced the other side of the roof. So that just kind of reminds me of something similar to what you're talking about.
It's a real thing, man. And you hear a lot of, I was very fortunate. One of my mentors on the legal side was Dick Stoll. And he was the former master distiller for the real Michter's, the one that closed down in 1991. And he was taught how to work and grow yeast from Charles Everett Bean, one of the original 5 Bean brothers, who worked at Michter's from, I think from like right after Prohibition all the way up to the 60s when he passed away. So Stoll was a good friend of mine, fantastic distiller, but he was the one, they ran Cypress there. He was the one that told me, and it's a great quote, the best whiskey is made from inherently inefficient processes. And that's the truth. The more efficient you get with your whiskey, the more you try to speed it up and try to chase the almighty dollar, honestly, a lot of times the worse the whiskey gets. And this is why accountants can be really bad for the bourbon industry and a lot of distillers. Yeah. The accountants, and I get it, you need both. Trust me, I have to play accountant and master distiller at mine. But, it's just a part of it. And you're asking me about the oak as well. Why do we use 2-year-old air-seasoned oak?
Yeah.
So for anybody that's listening that doesn't know, a standard bourbon barrel, the stave, after it's cut from the log and made into the flat wood slat, is set outside in the stave yard, most of them for about 6 months. Now production's so high that a lot of them are only setting 4 months. But what happens is while they're sitting in the stave yard, it weathers on it. And that's called seasoning the oak. It removes some of the bitter, astringent tannins. If you ever set an oak board up and let it weather on it, all the black that runs out of it, that's tannins coming out of the oak. And it helps to season the oak before they take it inside, dry it, make it into the barrel, and then char it. So for us, we pay an extra $100 a barrel to have our oak seasoned for 2 years. All right. And what that does is I got to listen to everybody familiar with Angel's Envy, Lincoln Henderson. When I was first getting into the legal game, I got to listen to Lincoln Henderson. And he talked about how, as bourbon distillers, we spend 6 years trying to get rid of what happens during the first 6 months of maturation, which is a massive influx of tannins from the oak that it takes 6 years for those to mellow out, esterify, and change into something that's very palatable and becomes a great bourbon. And I was like, well, ain't there some way around that? And the way around it is to season the oak more, to strip that out so it's never in there. Now, people ask me, well, why doesn't everybody do that? Well, I don't want to so for a major distillery, they often purchase their barrels for $125. So you're talking about doubling their barrel cost. They can't do that. I mean, making 1,500 barrels a day, that really starts to add up quick. For me, who's making 3 barrels a day, we just factor that into our production costs and we move on. So that's why we were able to have our oak seasoned for 2 years plus. And I think it's the reason why we've been able to have a product. We beat out 18-year-old bourbons at San Fran from major producers right down the road from me with a 6-year-old bourbon. And it's because a lot of it is because we think we have the best barrel that you can possibly get.
And then what do you, the second use of those barrels, obviously you're not using, is there a larger market for the second use barrels because of the 2-year open air seasoning?
Yeah, the second use barrels, I mean, I could sell them right now and reclaim probably 2/3 of what my total. Yeah, I mean, the used barrel, when I first got into it, a used barrel went for $35 a barrel. Now you can get a couple $100 a barrel out of them, especially that 2-year-old air seasoned oak. But once again, ours have had Neely bourbon in them, so we don't want to sell ours off. So we try to reuse every bit of ours that we can. Traditionally, we put absinthe in them, so making an aged absinthe that's out there. We've got some rum that we've made, and we've got quite a bit of aged moonshine, which is going to be a really cool product down the road that we're hopefully going to be able to get out at a much lower price because we have barrel cost factored into it. But now we're
is that a lot of flavored moonshine that's going into like apple pie or is it?
Well, so yeah, so we bring the moonshine off the still and then we flavor it into apple pie or lemon drop or sweet tea or something else. But when it comes off the still now, what we're not flavoring, we're going to bring over and decrease it down from 125 proof to 105 proof and put it in that used oak and let it age 4, 6, 8 years. And we'll have a bottled and bond moonshine for sale down the road. But we're also doing, because the TTB just changed and identified as standards of identity for single malt, American single malt as a category, which is awesome. And in that, they said you can actually use used oak for it, because before it had to be new oak for single malt. I didn't want to do that, because if I make a single malt, I want to make it like I think the way the best is made, which is over in Scotland. So now we're going to reuse every bit of our barrels, putting back a bunch of American single malt. And in 6 to 10 years, hopefully I'm still alive to try it at that point, but we should hopefully have a really good American single malt out.
Awesome. Well, Royce, I feel like I could talk to you for another hour, but we are limited on time here. So I have one last question. I think I started this a couple months ago. Just trying to discover, new brands that are people that make great whiskey they like. Is there an underrated whiskey brand that you like a lot that you feel it should be getting more attention?
Oh man, I can give you
other than Hidden Barn.
Other than Hidden Barn. If you guys get a chance, try Deer Hammer Distillery, Buena Vista, Colorado. They make a fantastic whiskey. Definitely try Stumpy Spirits, Columbia, Illinois. Also fantastic whiskey. Dark Arts, Macaulay Minton, one of the best master blenders out there. It's a source brand, but he's doing great things with it. And then Buzzard's Roost in downtown Louisville, I think makes their Char 1 rye, the cigar batch, is some of the best whiskey I've had. So I like, those are 4 just off the top of my head that a lot of people haven't heard of that make a great product.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Obviously we're going to get to Q&A from our audience. Before we do that, we did ask you to select a couple songs for our playlist that we have on Spotify. You chose, we always ask our guests to choose a couple songs they feel like represent their brand or just remind them of drinking whiskey. So you chose White House Road by Tyler Childress. Amazing pick. Love that song. And then Sweet Emotion by Aerosmith. You want to just quickly tell us why you chose those songs and what they mean to you and the brand and whiskey in general?
Tyler Childers is my age, and he's from 2 counties over in the mountains from eastern Kentucky. Of course, in his song, he talks about drinking moonshine. I mean, it just makes sense, right? It's gritty. It's eastern Kentucky. So to me, that, resonates directly with my whiskey. Authentic. He makes authentic music. We make authentic moonshine. Sweet Emotion, man. Like, I love hot rodding. That's something I do in my spare time. I like cramming gears in the 70 Chevelle, and there's no better song to put in than Aerosmith's Sweet Emotion to go cram some gears in. And it reminds me of, like, I hate the term smooth, but I hope people think of my whiskey as like a sweet emotion, as a, like that song is. So that's the why I chose both of those.
All right. Well, I just want to say, I obviously everyone we feature in the club, I really enjoy. I get to try a lot of whiskey. I'm introduced to a lot of new brands in what I do, running the restaurants and running this club. And I'm always super excited to find something new and that I haven't had before. And again, when I tasted your product, I think we've been working on this for almost 6-7 months now, or somewhere around there. And love the product, love what you're doing. Congrats on all the success. And let's get into the questions from our audience, and we'll choose our 2. What you'll do is you'll choose your favorite 2 questions of the lot, and then I will choose who gets the first place prize and the second place prize. So you get to be the good guy, I get to be the bad guy. That's how this works.
Okay.
So let's just dive into the private chat here. Are you getting a lot of feedback from my microphone?
I'm not. No, not too bad. Are you getting a lot from me?
No, I just hear a little bit of an echo. I'm not sure if our audience is getting that as well.
I'm just trying to make sure my phone doesn't overheat again. Once again, I apologize for that happening.
Oh, you're good. We've had worse things happen. A couple of months ago, I broke a glass live on camera and cut my finger. That was super fun. So stuff happens. We're live. Let's see here. Rich Martinez asked, what's your favorite part of the whiskey making process? Distilling and aging or bottling, and why?
That's easy. Distilling and aging more than bottling. Bottling is like the most unsexy part of the bourbon business. And luckily, I don't have to do much of that anymore. I've got employees that do it, but definitely, I've always been the type of owner that likes to be out there and in the still house, not sitting back with my feet propped up. So I like to be down and dirty and hanging out around the stills. That's a good
Mark
question.
Hammonds wants to know how much has the recipe changed throughout the generations of your family, or has it remained the same or close to the same?
So before around, we think it's about 1915. The family made 100% corn moonshine. So they would take and sprout the corn, like I told you I was doing, down on the roof at UK, and they would make it from a sprouted corn, 100% sprouted corn moonshine. Around 1910, 1915, my great grandfather started adding domino sugar into it. So the moonshine we sell today is the exact recipe that he used after he perfected that domino sugar and corn recipe. So we're roughly, I'm not going to tell you exactly what it is, but we're about 60-40 domino cane sugar to corn in that recipe.
And the mash bill has obviously changed if it was 100% corn at one point.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, before 1915, it was 100% corn. Since then, it's been 100% moonshine. You know, the bourbons didn't start until I sat down and created those.
Sarah Steepleton, I don't know the background behind this question, but it's an interesting one. You mentioned your cat Jameson had a famous mouse. Can you tell us about your cat? Any special talents?
Yes. So my cat's name is Thumper.
A thumper.
Thumper. He's very famous. If you get, he actually has now he has his own distillery cats Instagram hashtag, which is hilarious. If people come in to see him, but he is a stone cold killer. So he is a mouser, and he loves. It's funny. He loves to bring mice and snakes and moles and things like that in to show people on tours. So
What type of cat is he?
shit, I don't know what he is, man. I found him. He's only ever known that distillery. I found him in some pallets when we were building the place. So he's
As a
getting
kitten?
up there in age. Yeah, I don't. He was. I think he was a run of a litter. I'm not sure what he is. He's gray.
Nice, that's cool. Um, so Mark Horowitz asks, how did they get how do you get the cypress? Do you purchase it from another distillery? He's saying he thinks it's expensive and he thought it was protected for some reason. Can you shed some light on that?
It is, and it's very expensive. So you actually can't get it anymore. We were able to purchase it. There was a company down in Louisiana that was building some cypress fermenters for about 5 years from logs that he had found underwater. So reclaimed cypress, and was actually able to get a permit to be able to manufacture those. They have since revoked his permit. So if I lose those cypress fermenters, I can actually never replace them right now. But he is correct. It's a very expensive, very hard, and very protected wood. And
Interesting.
that's why you don't see very many. I'm sure there's a lot of craft guys that would love to have them now, but you can't get them. And that company's out of business. When they revoked his license, that was the end of them.
So, I mean, is there like, you must have like, that's it. What happens if they get a leak in them or like,
We luckily, once again, knock on wood, we can work on them. My dad, like I said, grown up a woodworker. These things are built really good, man. They're double tongue and grooved. I mean, makers in Woodford have some cypress vats that are well over 100 years old. So I like
really?
to think, yeah, I like to think, and the wood we've got is about 2 inches thick. So I like to think that is hopefully my distillery's around in 100 years, and then that generation of my family can deal with it then.
Matthew Archer asks, what's your ideal proof/age statement for bourbon?
My ideal proof is bonded, 100 proof. My ideal age is anywhere between 6 to 8 years. Is where I see a lot of great bourbons at. So we'll say 7 years. My ideal age.
Split the difference.
We'll split the difference.
Tim Moore asks, given the rich family history in distillation, do you draw on any of those techniques or styles in your current process? I know we kind of asked this question, but
yes.
Are you? Yeah,
I know we talked about the triple pot distilling and the double pot distilling that comes over from Ireland. We also utilize a thump keg as well. That's an old moonshining technique. You don't see a lot of people use it on the legal side. I love running a thumper, and we make a rye whiskey called a sweet thumped rye that does really well. And we actually put mash inside of our thumper, and as the whiskey thumps through it, it caramelizes inside of that thump keg, and brings over sweeter notes with the rye. So instead of having a really peppery hot rye whiskey, it's much more approachable to someone that people that come in and say, I don't like rye. I'm like, just try this one and let me know what you think. So
Interesting.
that's one thing we use with our thump keg. And then obviously, using wood vats. My family they didn't use cypress, but they used oak wood barrels.
Nice. Cameron Homer asks, given your family's rich moonshine history, what's the old, I think you may have mentioned you have one of the original stills. He wants to know how old it is.
Yeah, it's over 120-year-old. And you can see it in our gift shop. It's my most prized possession that I own. And it has never made a legal drop of whiskey in its life. And it was hilarious because my grandfather had drank whiskey that come off that still. So it was always cool to hear him tell stories about it and the way that it tasted coming off of it. But our current stills, if you look at them, are designed a lot like that old still, and mainly the line arms. So the pipes that come off of the cap going to the thumper and then over to the worm are actually 40 or 90. So we do hard pipe 90s instead of having a lot of them are angled and whatnot, designed exactly like my great-grandfather's old still.
Oh, wow. Oh, there's a couple good questions here. I know I'm going to ask this one. Do you have any other wild, crazy stories you want to tell us about your family? That's Sarah Steepleton.
Dude, my family's got more stories than the Bible. And I was presenting down at the New Orleans Bourbon Festival the other day. So I'll tell this story because I got asked this same question. Like, tell us a story that we never hear about. So my grandfather, went to jail a lot for bootlegging. And we put a brand out now called Papaw Sizemore's Revenge, which is, now that we have a legal brand out, it's like his, kind of FU to the, to being arrested and whatnot. But he went to jail, and it was funny. I hear he used to say, like, drinking and driving just wasn't that big of a deal back in the 50s. I'm like, okay, he's like, nobody was out on the roads, and if they were drunk too. So all right, Papaw, drinking and driving wasn't a big deal in the 50s. So he's out drinking and driving one night and gets arrested. And he gets arrested by a sheriff down in Clay County, Kentucky, named Skin Reed. And Skin knew my grandpa, so as soon as he drug him out of the car, he pepper sprayed him immediately because he didn't want to deal with him. Yeah, pepper sprayed him. So Skin. So anyways, takes him to jail, and before he puts him inside of the car, he turns around to my grandpa's buddy Joe, and he says, Earl, if you got a knife on you, give it to Joe, because I don't want to have to check the damn thing in down at the jail. So my grandpa reaches in his pocket and hands the knife to his buddy Joe. So they take him down, they book him, do the whole ordeal, put him in the jail cell. And my grandpa's like, and I spent the entire night with a Smith & Wesson 38 Special bodyguard in my pocket. He said, because the son of a bitch never asked me if I had a gun. Just asked me if I had a knife. That's a real story. My grandpa spent the night in the McKee County Jail with a pistol in his pocket. And I love that story.
That's great.
Yeah. He was a character, man, my grandfather.
Yeah, it sounds like it. All right, we got a couple more questions here. Jose Gonzalez asks, as you grow, do you feel that sourcing the 2-year air season barrels will be a challenge? Do you see that process evolving or staying the same?
For us, and that's a really good question. For us, it's hopefully it's going to stay the same. We went through a point about a year and a half, 2 years ago, where there was a major barrel shortage, and we got really worried that we weren't going to be able to get that 2-year-old air seasoned oak. So at the time, what we were going to do was we were going to have logs cut off our property and then start letting them season at our distillery and then taking them to the cooperage to have them made in. So we would have a sustainable pile of 2-year-old oak. Luckily, we source all of our barrels from 2 cooperages, either Zach Cooperage or Kelvin Cooperage, both in Kentucky. And we have a great relationship with Zach, and he guaranteed me, like, even through the barrel shortage, I will make sure you don't run out of barrels to keep you going with that seasoned wood, which was awesome of him. So because of that, we now continue to just keep buying barrels from Zach.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're coming up on an hour here, and as always, thank you for everyone for your great questions. I wish we could get to them all, but we are going to choose Royce is going to choose his top 2 questions of the night so we can get him out of this hot office. Do you want me to run through the questions again, Royce, or did you remember your favorite 2? You tell me. I'm happy to run through them again.
I think I've got them. They were all really
Okay.
good. I mean, they were all really good questions. I'm gonna say number two is the question about the cat Thumper. All right.
Okay.
I mean, so many people ask about that cat. He's so damn famous. So I like the fact that somebody was interested in the cat. And I'm going to say number one, man, was the person that asked about how we utilize the old school methods into our current whiskey. I thought that was just, really a really good, intricate question that had a lot of depth to it. Like I said, they were all great. They really were.
All right. Let me see. Okay, I think that Tim Moore was given the rich family history. Do you draw any of those techniques or styles in your current process? Is that the question?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And the other one was
Um,
about Jameson the cat that is not Jameson.
yeah, yeah. Thumper the cat. I'm gonna
Thumper.
go with Tim for the first place prize for the question about the history. I just feel like it ties in. I love the question about the cat, but I obviously am gonna stray a little bit towards the whiskey related question. So Tim Moore, we got a bottle of Hidden Barn batch 23B that won best small batch and double gold as my ear pod fell out at the San Francisco Spirit Awards, and that bottle's going to be signed by Royce. So we look forward to getting that to you. And then Sarah Steepleton, we're going to get you. Tim, you also get a hat, and then Sarah, we're going to get you a hat and a flask as well. So two great long-term Whiskey Club members winning prizes tonight. I love it. So thank you, Royce, so much for your time. And I'm gonna, if you do a cheers with me, my glass is empty. Hopefully, you have a little bit left in yours.
Yes, sir.
Um,
And
so
Trevor,
thank you.
I want to thank everybody from your group for coming on, listening to me tonight, ramble on about Neely and history and that stuff. So I really appreciate you all taking your time.
All right. Well, Royce, have a good night. Cheers to all the Whiskey Club members. Hope you enjoy your pick. And till next month, have a good
Cheers,
one.
guys.